So I thought I'd give you 10 minutes to kind of tell the guys what we're supporting, if you don't mind sharing.
Absolutely.
So,
Awesome.
Closers. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. I really, really appreciate y'all taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know everybody's slammed these days to come out and support us. So I will start with my story because that's how we ended up here, right? I grew up in Central Florida, hour north of Tampa. My father has been a drug dealer my entire life. I fell into that lifestyle. At 11, I was using drugs. By 13, drinking every day heavily. By 15, dropped out of school, selling drugs full time. I spent 8 years lost in a very dark place, doing a lot of things that I had a lot of shame about for a lot of years. But by the grace of God, I don't hold any of that anymore. He's freed me from all of that. But what I did learn throughout that time, and the reason I do what I do now, is that there's a lot of people out there who are hurting and lost and don't know there's another way out. People always think of folks who are struggling with addiction or homelessness or going to jail, any of those things as, oh, well, they got themselves in that position. I didn't ask to grow up in a home with a drug dealer for a father. I didn't ask to be introduced to drugs at age 11. And a lot of people, it's generational. A lot of us have grown up in those situations and end up continuing it and bringing it to our kids. So at 23, I ended up homeless and back at my dad's house because I had nowhere to go. At the advice of a family friend, I joined the United States Army. They helped me get my GED because I had dropped out of school. The only branch that would take me, so all y'all Air Force and everybody else. But the Army was monumental, taught me structure, discipline, things that I didn't have growing up in that world. But it also fueled my promiscuity and my alcoholism. I thought I would go in the military drinking less, and I drank way more than I drank before. So I'll warn you, if you guys are ever going to grow up and go in the military, be on guard. I got out of the military in 2010. I moved up here. My mother was a born-again Christian by the time I was out of the military. She was not when I was growing up. My parents split when I was 8, whole nother story. And so she encouraged me to go to church, and I would go once in a while. Never got through to me. The only experience with church I had before that was in basic training, so that I didn't have to clean the barracks on Sunday. I would go to church. And it took about 3 more years after I got out of the Army for God to really break through my hard exterior, who didn't need help, didn't need anything from anybody. Bullet Festival 2013. Another weekend of blackout drunk stupidity, doing things I would have never done if I was sober. I hit my knees and I asked my mom's God if he was real to change my life. And if y'all don't know, that would be 9 years ago to this past October 21st Mullet Festival weekend. And that same weekend, exactly 9 years later, we hosted the Niceville Bazaar and raised over $10,000 for faith-based nonprofits. So that's God reclaiming that, and we didn't even pick the date. It had nothing to do with it. Find out, like, you know, it just happened to come to me. I was doing a radio broadcast on it, and I was like, holy crap, that's exactly 9 years from my last weekend. So anyway, just God redeeming things, right? So I get out of the military, I party for 3 more years, I finally hit my knees in 2013, I started attending Crosspoint. Y'all had the come as you are sign out front, and I was like, okay, we're gonna check this and see if this is really true. At the time, I drove a jacked up Jeep Wrangler. I do have tattoos, I got them covered right now. Smoked, cussed, all those things, and they accepted me right where I was. Walked in that place and felt the love of God like I had never in my life before. I found Celebrate Recovery shortly after that. I actually started attending a small group with that chick back in the back there, Kylie, 10 years ago-ish. And God really grabbed a hold of me. When I found Celebrate Recovery, it's where he really started to change my heart. Celebrate Recovery is a biblical 12-step program on any of life's hurts, habits, or hangups. It's not just addiction. So we've all been hurt. We've all hurt other people. Celebrate Recovery is recovering the image of Christ. It's a structured way for us to grow in our walks with God and to love others the way that Christ loves us. So I get to lead that now on Tuesday nights at Crosspoint, the church I walked into not believing in God, which kind of blows my mind. In this whole time, my brother was also a drug addict. He did not go in the military. He stayed with my dad, got into harder and harder and harder drugs, eventually shooting up. He ended up with 2 open heart surgeries. He has a mechanical valve in his heart. Spleen surgery, he suffered a stroke, and he lost 3 fingers on his left hand, all from his IV drug addiction. Well, Rex shows up on my doorstep. I'm 4 years sober, and he's like, I know I can do it because I've seen you change. At the time, he had a warrant out for his arrest. We turned him in. Sidebar, that warrant was because he stole from me, and I wasn't going to enable my brother and let him die like my cousin died and like so many of my friends died. So Rex went to jail. He hit his knees in jail and said he was going to dedicate his life to Christ. When he came out, he started attending Celebrate Recovery with us. There was no resources provided to him as a 17-year IV drug addict ready to change. And so we started Freedom Life Compass as a way to bridge that gap. So the Freedom House is a resource we are providing to the community. Freedom Life Compass, the freedom we found in Christ, a life compass guides your path. What we do is we provide Christ-centered recovery and resources to Northwest Florida and the world. We go into the jails, homeless shelters, recovery programs, tell people about the resources that are available to them. And I started that because of Rex. So Rex got out. He started coming to CR with us. He ended up getting into Project Hope Recovery Center. It's in Crestview. It's a 12-month faith-based program. He graduated. He became an intern. He became staff. He became the program director, and now he is the executive director of Project Hope Florida. Within 5 years. Okay, wait. Yeah, you can clap on that. I'm serious. I'm clap on that. I don't know how many nights I spent crying because I didn't know where my brother was. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. So many nights. And now when I cry joy, tears of joy, because he's 5 years sober. He got married last year. He had a baby that's about to be a year old. And he's running a men's program. Oh, and he got ordained to be a pastor in the Global Ministries church. So to watch what God has done through the Ministry of Celebrate Recovery, through my family, is just amazing to me. And so throughout the last 5 years that we've been going into these places and telling people about the programs that are available, one of the big gaps that we've seen in our community is transitional housing. So we have recovery programs where people can go in, get immersed in the Word, learn how to deal with their problems that they use substances to cover up. But we don't have transitional housing. We do not have a halfway house for single women. We have 2 halfway houses for single men in our area, Jada House in Fort Walton and Genesis House in Valpy. So God put it on our hearts that this was a resource we needed to provide because it was not available. And so Manna Church was gracious enough to let us use this property that they own. It was gifted to them from Pastor Bob, who ran a church in this building for 40 years. He retired and he gave it to Manna, and it wasn't big enough for what they needed, and they were holding on to it, thought they were going to sell it, heard me speak somewhere, and Chris came up to me and said, what would it mean if you had a building? And I was like, the difference between doing this thing for real and what we've been doing. So we signed a lease and took property possession in May, and we've already gutted and redone the entire inside. We do need somebody who cuts granite. So if y'all know anybody who can cut granite, I got granite in there that needs to get laid. Outside of that, the inside is done, and we're going to be adding on a bathroom and laundry room here, and then eventually we're going to add on 6 rooms. So phase 1 is to get the bathroom and laundry room so that we can open. Phase 2 is to get 6 rooms added on. Once we get those added on and the women are not living in there as their main house, we will open that as a life skills training center for the community. So people who grew up in worlds like mine, who never got taught anything, how to do a resume, how to money management classes, GED, all those things, we will be able to house in here, and we'll have people from the community come in and give classes on things that they're proficient at or wherever their heart is. The women coming in will have at least 6 months of sobriety. They will come in, we will help them take assessments and tests on what they would be good at as a career, and also spiritual giftings, and we're going to help them figure out what is their next step, and we're going to get them to that next step and help them transition into independent living. So we're not talking about people coming straight out of addiction into here. We're talking about people coming out of a recovery program into here, out of trafficking, out of homelessness, whatever it may be. So you guys are going to be a part of something much, much bigger than you can imagine or think. I know it seems like, okay, you're going to help these couple people. That's not the case. If you look at my life, if you look at my brother's life, if you look at the people that we've helped so far and the impact that those people are having in our community, you're really touching something that's so much bigger than you can even imagine when you're doing this kind of stuff here. So I just want y'all, I'll give you one little story and I'll let you go. Did I hit my 10 minutes yet? Okay. So all the work we've been doing in the community, the law enforcement know what I do, and they pulled somebody over who was obviously an active addiction. She was not high at the time. She had a 3-year-old with her. That 3-year-old's wearing nothing but a diaper. The car seat she was in tatters. They've got the girl in the cop car, and the cop's talking to her, and she says she's ready to change. And they know me. I'm no BS. If you're ready to change, then I'm going to help you. But if you're not ready, I can't make you do anything. And if you're not ready, you're not going to change, right? So they call me, they say, Stephanie, she says she wants to change. I was like, okay, all right. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm driving home from Mobile from my day job, ready to go home. I was like, okay, Jesus, if you say so, go my butt to Fort Walton Beach. I talked to this woman. She says she's ready to change. We do an intake on the phone with Saving Grace Women's Home. She gets accepted, but she's got a daughter. What am I gonna do with her kid, right? So Saving Grace has a new partnership with Grace Fellowship out in Bonifay, and we called Leah from Grace Fellowship and said, Leah, can you help us here? And she's like, I think we can. We're gonna have to get the pastor approval, blah, 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 blah. So we're sitting on the side of the road, right? I was like, all right, okay. We're gonna put you in a safe house. If you're ready to change and you wanna do something different, I will put you in a safe house until we can get you into a program. You promise me you're ready to change? Yes, I'm ready to change. Starts to go light a cigarette. Put my hand out. She's like, really? I was like, yes, really. Puts the cigarette back in the pack and hands me her cigarettes. That's somebody who's ready to change, because I would have never gave you my cigarettes in my addiction. I'm just telling you. That usually gets a laugh, no? It's real though. I wasn't giving up my cigarettes. Anyway, she gives me her cigarettes. She gives me her cell phone. We put her in a safe house. We get mom into the program. We get Amara into a foster family. And so she's now 2 months into the program. I went and got to see her when I gave the chapel service on Monday night. And she says that when she gets out, she wants to do what I do. Sorry, y'all. And go back and save the women that are just like she was. Because she said if I had known there were resources like this, I wouldn't still be living on the street. She was sleeping in her car. I don't know if I left that out. She was sleeping on the street. She was sleeping in her car. And the night before, she was ready to kill herself, and she prayed for God to send her something, a sign. And she gets pulled over the next day because her registration is bad. I mean, and the cops could have took her butt to jail, could have took her kid away. But instead, they called me and they gave her an opportunity, they gave her a chance, and now they are going to affect a countless amount of lives, because that woman's going to get out of there. She's going to go back into those neighborhoods. She's not going to be afraid to go talk to the crackhead on the corner. She's not going to be afraid to go do that. So again, I go back to saying all that to tell you, her daughter's life is going to be changed. Her daughter's life is going to be changed. Generational curses will be broken in that family because somebody said yes to what Jesus was telling them to do that day. So you guys are going to affect so much change by helping us here. And some of the kids already heard this. If they were Mission Northwest, I remember some faces. But I just want to say thank you, first and foremost. Thank you for being willing to serve in this way and coming and helping us serve the women and the men and all the people that are going to be able to use the Life Skills Center in our community to change our tomorrows, to change this epidemic that's been going on in our world. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of all of our hearts, for coming out here today. It's just a day of labor in some eyes, but honestly, it's so much bigger than that. So thank you guys.
Thank you.